Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar today. I can see that people are still filtering in, but as you are, I'll start with the introductions. My name is Victoria Pavlova. I am the editor of CRN UK, and with me today I have Rajan Kashwala, Solutions Engineer at Kaseya, and Ellen Daniels, Senior Content Strategist at the Channel Company, CRN's proud parent. So today we are talking about cyber essentials, specifically building a secure foundation for the government-backed scheme, the role of asset and password management. Cyber Essentials is a UK government-backed scheme designed to help businesses of all sizes protect themselves against a wide range of cyber threats. And in this webinar, we'll delve into the importance of understanding and implementing the 5 key controls of Cyber Essentials and using this as a jumping off point to a wider IT and cyber audit. Implementing these controls requires a strong foundation, as I'm sure you'll all know. And the first step is knowing what assets you have, where they are, and who is responsible for them. Effective IT asset management provides the clarity needed to apply these controls efficiently, but also it provides proper authentication mechanisms which are crucial for securing access to different services. In this webinar, we'll also explore how modern password management solutions can offer both ease of use and robust security, ensuring that only authorized individuals can access sensitive systems and all of your information and data is safe. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic, metaphorical mic, to Rajan to introduce himself.
Yeah, thanks, Victoria. Welcome, everyone. Appreciate you joining this afternoon. Yeah, my name is Rajan. I'm a solutions engineer at IT Glue. I specialize and focus really on helping existing partners of ours and potential new partners evaluate how they're documenting their own infrastructure and, of course, their customers' infrastructure. And my goal is really to explore how IT Glue can streamline and enhance their documentation process. Like you mentioned, obviously today we'll discuss cyber essentials, which is becoming more and more of a prevalent topic for some of the partners that I'm working with. And look, I'll certainly share some insights on how our partners are leveraging IT Glue to meet those compliance standards. And we're seeing increasing amounts of organizations aim for cyber essentials. So having, as you mentioned, a robust, clear and accurate documentation platform is becoming increasingly important to achieve compliance with some of those controls, and that's where we can come in. So yeah, look, I'm really excited to discuss generally what opportunities the Cyber Essentials certification may present and why it's something at the very least that you may want to consider, but of course how IT Glue as a documentation platform can help you out as well.
Likewise, really excited to delve into the topic. Ellen, could you please introduce yourself as well?
Sure, thanks. Thanks for everyone for joining. I'm Ellen Daniel. I'm a senior content strategist at CRN. And today I'm going to be presenting some research which CRN has conducted into cyber essentials and then also wider password management and also the important issue of asset management and documentation. And for this research, we've surveyed 150 IT leaders who are based in the UK.
Thanks, Ellen. Yes, so as my distinguished colleague just said, we will be looking at a white paper created by CRN in partnership with IT Glue today. The findings of the white paper will be made available to you all slightly further down the line. And at the end, we also have some slides which can be made available after this as well. Before we kick off in earnest, just wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping. I'm sure you've all done this before and know how it works, but if you do have questions, please feel free to submit them using the questions tab, and we will take them throughout the conversation as appropriate. So with that, I'm going to stop rambling for the time being. Helen, would you like to present the first set of findings, please?
Yes, thank you, Victoria. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be covering, first of all, cyber essentials today. And for those who aren't aware, this is a UK government-backed scheme, which is designed to help organisations protect against the most common cyber threats. And it lays out 5 key areas that they need to comply with in order to be certified. And the first finding is looking at general awareness levels. So 85% of those respondents included in the research said that they are aware of the cyber essentials scheme, and the remaining 15% are unaware. So you can see that awareness levels are generally high when it comes to the scheme. In this next finding, it delves a little bit deeper into the type of certification they have. Of those familiar with the scheme, 25% said that their organisation has the Cyber Essentials certificate, with 5% having the Cyber Essentials Plus. Now, the difference between these two is that Cyber Essentials is self-assessed, whereas the Cyber Essentials Plus certification has the addition of a hands-on technical verification. And of the rest of the respondents, 18% say they have both certifications, 41% have neither, 11% are unsure about their organisation's current status. And this indicates that the standard Cyber Essentials certification is the most common, which is to be expected as it is a prerequisite for the other certification. In this next finding, we're looking at those who do not yet have the certification. Of those who do not yet have it, 28% that they are currently working towards achieving it, with 27% having plans to obtain it in the future. In the rest of the respondents, 24% have no plans to get certified but are interested in doing so, and 21% have no plans and no interest. Respondents were then asked whether they've gained new business or revenue as a result of having the certification. 57%, and these are respondents that have already been certified, so 57% have gained new business revenue opportunities as a result of the certification, which signifies that it's helping them gain business. It not only signals potential adversaries that your organization prevent the most common attacks, but also reassures clients, partners, and customers as well. And also, some public sector contracts may require the certification, so this may be another reason why they've gained new business opportunities.
Thanks, Ellen. So it's clear that there's a huge amount of interest in Cyber Essentials, and for a very valid reason. It not only helps business reputation, which we all care about, but also does directly drive business opportunities. So with 56% of respondents in total saying that they're either working towards achieving Cyber Essentials or are planning to work towards it, that sounds like a great point to start talking about IT and cyber audits, and to actually consider your cyber posture in a huge amount of depth. So, Rajan, I'm going to throw to you. What is the best place to start when you are looking towards an IT audit?
Yeah, for sure. I can probably offer a high level sort of plan of what you should probably want to consider. The first being arguably the most critical step in an IT or cyber audit, which is understanding exactly what do you have in your environment. You can't protect what you don't know exists, right? So creating quite a comprehensive inventory of all of your assets is going to be important and quite crucial. Of course, hardware assets, but also software, network devices, cloud services, users, passwords, things like this. You'll get quite a clear picture of your landscape. It will also help you identify things like outdated software, unmanaged devices, shadow IT, things like this that may be worth kind of getting rid of, removing from the environment. Secondly, you probably want to map out some security controls. Assessing where you stand. Really, once we've got our assets, the next step is probably to assess the current security controls you have in place, reviewing things like your firewalls, access controls, malware protection, security update management, secure configurations is another one in Cyber Essentials. Up to you want to compare how those things align with the Cyber Essentials requirements. Could that be the one that you're going for, and identify any gaps? If it were me, I'd probably be asking questions like, are all of these devices protected with an up-to-date AV software? Are firewalls properly configured? Do we have secure password management, right? By mapping out these kind of controls, you can create more of a baseline that highlights, what's already being worked on. So yeah, I think that's probably one place that you should start, and that's where immediate attention is probably needed. Thirdly, after establishing your current state, the next step is to probably conduct some sort of risk assessment there. That's going to involve identifying potential threats to your assets, evaluating vulnerabilities, where potential, avenues that could be exploited, whether it's an unpatched software, misconfigured device, or just some sort of relaxed access control. Knowing those risks will let you obviously prioritize and see what needs fixing. And then, I would probably beyond that strengthen your foundation with policies and procedures. They're going to form the backbone of your security posture. Once we've sort of outlined what I mentioned a moment ago, you can start to do that, right? So that's going to include things like your incident response plans, access control policies, data. Documenting that in one place is pretty important. And then further to that, remediation plans, setting timelines around that, and throughout everything I've mentioned, to be honest, on top of all of that, we need a documentation tool. It's probably going to be your biggest ally, centralizing all of your findings, asset inventories, putting it in all one place, connecting it. That's gonna allow you to stay on track and stay a bit organized. So those are probably like a few steps. I would say if you're working towards it, what's the best place to start? That's probably a good plan, I would say.
That's amazing. I always like to start with a practical question because I feel like that's what we're all here to find out, right? But I also have a hunch that in the audience we'll probably have quite a few moderately to extremely overstretched heads of cyber and IT security people who are not only trying to carve out the time for something like an IT audit or a Cyber Essentials certification, but also trying to win management buy-in. And so with that in mind, my question is, where does IT asset management sort of sit within an organization's security posture? How important is it? Why is it important? How do you convince your boss that it matters?
Yeah, for sure. Well, look, I think firstly it's important to clarify what exactly we're referring to when we say asset management, password management. I think it's pretty straightforward. But for the context really of this session and how IT Glue, at least as a tool, considers asset management, I think that the definition is somewhat the same throughout. But we're referring to a comprehensive approach to manage the purchase, deployment, maintenance, usage, and maybe decommissioning of both software and hardware assets within an organization. I've not only worked with partners that want to store hardware assets though, but non-IT related assets as well. That could be something like a seat, like a desk plan, or maybe someone's issued out a really fancy standing desk. It's very expensive. You want to track who's responsible for that. So it's not just, I guess, the traditional IT assets and by password management. Obviously, that one's a lot more straightforward. Obviously, here we're talking about the tools, but also the practices that we have to create, store, and manage passwords securely. But at a high level, where does this sit? Why is it important? Why should we care about it? Assets, putting it in one place, do we get a lot of control and insight or visibility, right, on inventory of hardware, softwares, and services that you may be offering, and that's going to enable your organization and the customers that you manage to understand what you own, where they're located, who's responsible for them in terms of a risk assessment. And from a technical standpoint, for engineers, how are these assets logically connected to each other? And then when it comes to compliance with cybersecurity frameworks as well, a lot of them, including Cyber Essentials, but not only that, ISO, NIST, they'll mandate accurate asset management to ensure compliance with certain controls. So we need it. For some of them, it might be as simple as just, hey, show me all of your managed assets, or hey, show us a list of all of the passwords that you manage for your customers or internally, right? They may just want to see this. And look, to be very honest, if you're out there now and you're looking to be compliant with Cyber Essentials or any framework really, and the answers to those questions are not at your fingertips, or at the very least, a few clicks away in terms of getting a list of your passwords, where are your assets, then you may want to reconsider, how you're documenting it and where specifically. And then passwords as well, obviously they play a fairly important role. One single source for all of your credentials to live. That's going to help you obviously internally manage where these are, who has access to them. And also the risk is just generally decreased, right? Storing credentials in an encrypted format is going to make sure that these passwords and other credentials are not living in files, spreadsheets, an email, someone's head, or any other sort of loose, unencrypted format.
Well, I certainly have never done that before. Never stored a password in my head. Anyway, um, right. So that's the carrot, or rather, that's the stick
Mm.
of why you should pursue Cyber Essentials. Let's talk about the carrot for a little bit. What are the, we alluded to at the beginning that some respondents to the survey do see business opportunities, and there's the reputational boost, obviously. But can you delve into a little bit more detail of what the opportunities are of pursuing Cyber Essentials, doing an IT asset audit or overhaul?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think the answer to that question also ties in with some of the findings that Ellen mentioned, and we'll get into that. But I mean, firstly, in terms of ensuring compliance, if you're going for Cyber Essentials, let's say, it's a non-negotiable for many organizations, right? An IT asset audit provides quite a comprehensive inventory of everything that you're managing, hardware, software, ensuring that we meet these requirements. Without that audit, it's going to be challenging to identify and address these gaps that could jeopardize the certification. And regular audits help MSP partners of ours not only achieve and maintain compliance, but also just demonstrate their commitment to a robust sort of security practice. But also minimizing risk. I think risk management is particularly important. An audit will often reveal potential vulnerabilities related to maybe an entire network, but also each specific asset, right? Knowing where these risks lie, we can better protect sensitive data and minimize the risk of possible security breaches. I mentioned before, we can't secure what we don't know. A lot of partners that I've worked with have carried out IT audits in the past, maybe not for that one purpose to say, hey, look, we want to carry out an audit, but just generally maybe when deploying a new tool. A network, nonetheless, for instance, has been scanned. We see that there may be some unmanaged device, and it's a customer who's just decided, you know what, my laptop's really good, I'm going to just continue working from my laptop, right? But there's no RMM agent on there. It's not managed in Intune. That's not ideal. We can see these outliers, get them out of the environment, or just manage them accordingly. I've worked with partners as well who've carried out a same sort of process and just seen a lot of devices that maybe can just be decommissioned or retired, right? Cost control is quite key as well. An audit can help you uncover redundant assets, which can maybe be a drain on just wallet, I guess ultimately. But the potential opportunity that you mentioned, Victoria, it does tie back to those metrics. As a result of going for Cyber Essentials, you'll likely have no choice but to undergo an audit of your assets unless you really have your ducks in a row. But anyways, you can see that going for Cyber Essentials can increase revenue, right? So I think it was something like 57% said that they have seen an increase in revenue. And for those respondents prior that said they had no intention of going for Cyber Essentials, this is probably going to be your number one reason, right? Obviously, our main priority as an IT service provider is to keep environments secure at a high level, sure, but running any business, whether that's an MSP business or anything else, driving growth and increasing revenue is particularly important as well.
Fantastic, thank you. So we do delve into this a little bit in the research, but I'm interested to hear from your experience, Rajan,
Mm.
about some of the challenges, and we can go into this at a very top level and potentially explore it later on. Some of
Yeah.
the challenges that organizations might face when pursuing Cyber Essentials and starting on an IT asset tracking exercise.
Yeah, for sure. To be honest, this is a topic I discuss pretty much every day. I could dedicate. We got 40 minutes. I could probably dedicate 40 minutes to this. I won't, but I'll discuss challenges that I see kind of most commonly. Others which are very niche, obviously, I'll leave out. But firstly, I think just the sheer volume of assets. It can be difficult to document, right? MSPs manage a diverse range of IT assets, hardware, software, network components. It seems like quite a monumental task. And the challenge is not only tracking these items, but managing details, the serial number, the model number, the configuration of it, things like this. With so many assets to handle, a comprehensive documentation tool can become quite important. Right, if I can firstly bring in assets from different tools that I'm managing, ideally through an integration, and secondly, connect these assets together. That's going to be really important. So for example, if I'm an engineer and we use SharePoint, let's say, for documentation, a call might come in, someone's having an issue processing an invoice, let's say. My SharePoint file will show, okay, here's what finance package they have, and that's very good, but I don't know where this application lives. Is it in the cloud? Okay, great. In which case, who has the credentials? Where is that stored? Is it installed on a machine? Okay, where is that machine, right? While it's great to have the documentation in one place, it's also important to consider, linking these areas together, which is where these integrations become quite important. I think we'll get into that kind of as we go through today. But also ensuring accuracy and just general consistency. A really simple example that I often discuss is how a tool like ours can store KB guides, how-to guides, like procedural documents. This is great, it's very nice, but we run the risk of this piling up year after year, right? And suddenly down the line, 5 years after taking on a new tool, that list of guides is 5,000. All right, well, we're probably going to be in the same situation we are today, which is no one's using them. So I often recommend, or highly recommend, I should say, putting just something as simple as an expiry date. You can then get sent a notification, hey, look, in 3 weeks, this article is going to breach compliance. Have a look at it, see if the data is accurate, the last time someone even clicked on it, and take action accordingly. And the third and final item that I'll discuss in terms of challenges, one of the biggest ones in my opinion, is standardization across customers. It's a big challenge. Different clients have varying standards and formats for asset documentation. What we really want are templates to assist with that. So for instance, how we document a virtualized environment. If I were an MSP, it may not drastically vary from customer to customer. I probably want to see things like, what virtualization technology are we using? Is it Azure or Hyper-V, something like that? What's the host? Which assets are virtualized, and the login to access VMware hosting or whatever it may be. By having that template, if I'm an engineer, I know that for the 10 customers out of 200 we work with, for instance, they may have virtualized environments. Doesn't matter which customer I'm looking at or who documented it, the template is the same. It's the same structure. So it doesn't matter which engineer is looking at it, who documented it initially. It's the same from customer to customer, and that only drives efficiencies. So those are some of the challenges I see, and a few maybe potential solutions.
That's fantastic. Thank you. I mean, it's so interesting to see how much interoperability comes into play in any industry, in any technological layer at this point when we've all built up such complex kind of legacy infrastructures. So we'll talk about the challenges from a research perspective and what respondents said were their biggest challenges in a second. Ellen, would you like to present the next set of findings?
Yes, thank you, Victoria. So in this next set of findings, we look at a bit more into the technical controls that organizations have to comply with for Cyber Essentials. So as you can see, 87% have firewalls in place, 86% have user access controls, 85% have malware protection, 84% have secure update management, and 79% have secure configuration. These are fairly basic areas of cybersecurity, and as you can see, most respondents are luckily complying. Those that don't have these in place should assess these 5 technical areas and, as Rajan said, conduct a thorough audit of their landscape before taking the necessary steps to meet requirements, not just for the sake of obtaining cyber essentials, but also for improving overall cyber resilience. In this next one, we asked whether they've made any changes to their cybersecurity strategy in response to the Cyber Essentials scheme. And 50% said that they have made changes to their cybersecurity strategy in response to the Cyber Essentials scheme. And when we asked what specific changes had been made, responses included implementing an MFA policy, an enhanced password policy, better device management practices, the regular installation of security updates, documentation of IT practices, and the adoption of a zero trust approach. From these qualitative responses, it appears that the Cyber Essentials acts as a good benchmark standard for cybersecurity. Respondents see it as a checklist for ensuring baseline security measures are in place, and also as a way of driving better awareness and user education. In this next finding, we asked what the big challenges they face when trying to achieve certification and also maintaining it once they have it. While many reported that they have made changes to their security strategy in a previous finding, the top challenge that respondents are facing is the complexity of aligning requirements with existing processes. We can also see that integrating Cyber Essentials with other industry-specific requirements was also a challenge for 25%. A significant number of respondents reported a lack of resources or a lack of senior management support as also presenting a hurdle to adoption. This indicates that logistical factors are standing in the way of becoming certified, and sometimes integrating with other regulations can be a challenge. And in this next finding, we asked what the biggest benefit of achieving Cyber Essentials is. 27% the biggest benefit of achieving the certification was minimizing the risk of cyber attacks and breaches, as is to be expected. Next is meeting industry-specific regulations, and 14% said enhanced customer trust was the biggest benefit. This indicates that organizations are motivated by both internal and external factors. They value improving their own cybersecurity and resilience, but they also recognize the importance of meeting industry regulations and the impact the certification can have on customer trust. 19% said that they have not experienced any of the benefits listed.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ellen. I mean, it's really, really encouraging to see that even across organizations that may not be going for Cyber Essentials necessarily or haven't started working on it yet, at least 70% are already compliant with all of the heat controls. And I mean, this may be selection bias. We do like to think that CRN's audience is incredibly tech and cyber savvy, but still really, really encouraging. We did talk a little bit about kind of the benefits of Cyber Essentials, and obviously that feeds into winning management buy-in. But Rajan, in practical terms, how should IT and cyber leaders go about winning management buy-in for a Cyber Essentials certification?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think Ellen touched on it in one of those stats. Getting management buy-in or words to that effect was one of the biggest challenges there. And I'd probably say two main talking points, if it were me trying to get management buy-in on this, is one, a financial aspect, and two, a technical aspect. Obviously, I'll expand on those. The first one, the financial aspect, is look, there's money to be made here. Should we go for Cyber Essentials as a certification? We spoke about that in the first set of findings. Revenue about at least 57%, so they have seen some sort of increase there. But achieving the certification can be a key differentiator that opens up some larger doors to maybe more lucrative customers, right? A lot of organizations, especially those in highly regulated industries like healthcare, government, finance, these sort of verticals now require partners and vendors to have Cyber Essentials, at least in our neck of the woods. And without it, we're just simply not eligible to even bid for these contracts. So we're leaving potential revenue on the table. So investing in Cyber Essentials is not just a tick box exercise to say yes, we are compliant. It can be more of a strategic move that positions us to go after bigger deals, increase market share, and just drive growth generally. By demonstrating and that we're adhering to recognized security standards, we're boosting our credibility, and possibly even for existing customers to be honest, that cross sell of new services and new offerings may increase as a result of getting something like this. But second to that, in no particular order, I should say these two points, but the more technical sort of way of looking at it is without proper documentation, we could be and without proper certification of that, we could be compromising security, our customers' security, right? They could be left vulnerable if we don't have this sort of proper documentation on environments that we're managing, both ourselves and customers. If we don't have a clear centralized record, gaps will inevitably appear. They're not just inconvenient for us troubleshooting as an engineer, but they're dangerous, right? They're exposing us to potential security incidents, possible data breach, compliance failures that can damage our reputation and in turn, cost us financially as well, of course. But investing in proper documentation, platforms at least designed for IT professionals, you can create that more robust and secure foundation for your operations, tracking things like your assets, logging changes, ensuring nothing is missed when it comes to compliance checks, security updates. It's not just about protecting our own organization, you guys as an MSP, but fulfilling responsibilities to customers and environments too. So without that level of diligence, at least we're not only risking the Cyber Essentials compliance, but we're risking the trust of our customers. So, it's more than just a compliance requirement. Like I said, it's more than just a checkbox to say, yes, we have this. It's a gateway to possibly greater business opportunities that also protect our existing customers as well. So those are the two main points: the financial aspect of it, there's possible revenue, but also, look, we're going to be leaving ourselves vulnerable here without something like this in place. Outside of that, I'm happy to just share my thoughts on a few of the additional findings there. The first stat for me is really interesting because there was a certain stat there. X amount, I think it's 87%, said they've implemented firewalls, user access control about the same, 85% malware protection, things like this. The point I want to make here is a lot of MSPs may not realize that they're actually following several key controls of the Cyber Essentials framework. For instance, one of them is maintain an up-to-date list of all of the assets, right? It's quite an easy control to meet, provided you have the right tools in place, of course. Most MSPs inherently do this as part of their operational best practices, whether it's for inventory management, asset tracking, monitoring. These are tasks that routinely MSPs will just perform. The irony here is, I guess, the first set of findings that you mentioned, Ellen, certain amount of MSP partners may deem Cyber Essentials as unnecessary, solely because it's maybe deemed as too elementary or something like this. They're already practicing a lot of these key principles in daily operations. At least that's what I see with a lot of partners I work with. So my advice to everyone is, without the certification, that is carry out just a short review. Don't have to spend too long. Just carry out a short review of some of these controls included in Cyber Essentials. You'll probably see that you have a few of them in place. Hopefully that will just make you a bit more inclined to think, let's just invest that time, invest a bit of money, get it, and then opens the doors to some of the areas that we've discussed there as well. The second piece, the final comment I have on that is,
I think.
Oh yeah, sorry, go ahead, Ellen. Yeah.
Oh no, sorry. Carry on.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say my final comment, which I think is really important, is malware protection should always be 100%. There's no excuse not to have robust malware, antivirus software, endpoint security solutions. They're readily available. They're easy to implement. They should be non-negotiable, right? I'm explaining this in quite a strict or stern way, but it's like having a lock on your front door. If you bought a new house or a new flat, whatever it may be, and it said, the letter said, hey, look, it doesn't have a lock on the front door, they say no chance, right? I'm not staying there. So why would you do the same with your network?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of the bare essentials that everyone needs to be complying with at a minimum. I think we've got Victoria back with us now. I think she was having some technical difficulties, but she seems to be back. I'll pass back over to her. Oh, I think she might still be having some issues. So I will just move on to the next question. So
apologies.
Oh, there we go. Hey, Victoria.
We are back, but feel free to ask the next question, Ellen, since I've been off for 5 minutes. I was not hacked. It was a laptop crash.
One second, sorry. For organizations that might be having these issues with having the resources, how can other partners kind of help them out? How can third parties help with these issues?
Yeah. Well, I think it's definitely worth discussing how IT Glue as a tool can help not only meet Cyber Essentials requirements, but generally improving how we document. Just for a bit of background, IT Glue was designed specifically for managed service providers. As we continue to grow, it's been adopted by many internal IT teams as well. But nonetheless, it was founded by the CEO of an MSP in Canada in 2002, called Chris Day. After about 5 years of being in the business, he noticed, as is the case with many MSPs, that it sometimes takes more than one tech to solve a ticket. Documentation sprawl was a big issue. On one occasion, as I'm sure has been the case with many partners watching this here, he walked in and saw three people huddled around a desk solving one ticket, and that's when we thought, enough's enough. Let's figure this out. The reason I mention this is by proxy of you having accurate documentation in one place in a way where all of your documentation is connected, it's going to do, at least for the purpose of an audit or going for Cyber Essential, something like this, it's going to do two things. One of two things, I should say. One, show you where the gaps are. For example, you might see, okay, we don't have firewalls in place. Once we do that, we're pretty compliant with it. Or two, it's going to show you, yeah, you are compliant. That's a very, very high level of it. But if we start with, where do tools like this assist? Asset tracking, obviously Cyber Essentials requires that you have a clear understanding, visibility on your IT assets, hardware, software. IT Glue excels by providing a centralized repository where all of this information can be managed and tracked for every device, whether it's workstation servers or a desk, a really fancy desk or whatever it may be, every piece of software deployed, operating systems, applications, put it all in one location, right? Makes it a lot easier to manage. If we talk about password management as well, it's obviously a very crucial component of Cyber Essentials and just being secure generally. Strong password practices are essential for protecting systems and data. IT Glue provides a secure, centralized location. It is a password manager ultimately. It's a centralized location you can put all of this data, which reduces that risk of vulnerabilities. We have integrations into things like Active Directory with our companion tool Network Glue that can automatically schedule rotations of passwords based on some sort of complex requirement. We offer host-proof hosting as well. So we do encrypt passwords using AES 256-bit encryption. You, of course, have the option to have an encrypted password, but you hold the decryption key. So as opposed to us holding it and it's just decrypted whenever you need, for the most sensitive passwords, you may store, right? You're the only one that can access them. It goes without saying that if you lost that decryption key, you'd be in trouble. Even we can't access them. That's the whole point of it. But nonetheless, this is kind of host-proof hosting that we can offer. So those are a few, I'd say, from a documentation and also a password management standpoint that I would probably say where IT Glue can help.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Rajan. So after all of those IT issues, right, let's talk about organizations that maybe don't have their stuff as together as they would like and are dealing with lots and lots of document sprawl. What's one practical tip for sort of beginning to detangle that?
Yeah, so for a team that may not have their documentation in place, what sort of tips to get that in place was the question?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. We can really think of it with at least how IT Glue considers it, and I think this is useful for anything, even if you have another documentation tool. Is really three main areas is how I look at documentation being broken down. So I'd probably group it into these three areas and assess how are we doing this. If you've come to the conclusion that, okay, maybe we don't have our ducks in a row, we should look at this. The first area is what I'd probably call core information. So if I'm an MSP, I may work with fully managed customers. I may work with some break fix, maybe a bit of a split. That's fairly common for what I see with a lot of partners. Regardless, though, the core information I want about a customer is, things like who works there, what office locations they have. They're going to have passwords for various systems and applications I need to access. This core information that is consistent from customer to customer, where does that exist? Can you unify it? Can you standardize it and offer a consistent place to put that? Secondly, in terms of, I'll probably call it more maybe flexible type of information. As I mentioned, some managed customers may be purchasing all of the offerings, the security offerings that you have, right? They may be purchasing backup as a service, in which case you're going to want to store things like the protected server, but also the vendor. Who are you buying backup from? Is it on-prem? What's the retention period? Things like this. How are you tracking these kind of more varied information? If it's something like a break fix customer, maybe that, what I mentioned a moment ago, the core information is enough. But that second piece of information, what I'd maybe say the more flexible, varying information, consider that as well. Where does that live? Can you unify this? How are these two pieces also connected to each other? And the third pillar, at least this is what we call like the three pillars of documentation in IT Glue, is the written documents. And that often sits on top of those two main areas, core information, flexible information. It often sits on top, which is this idea of procedural information, your how-to guides, right? Where do they live? Are they up to date? Who's using them? If you're looking at a document and you see last updated 2022 August, is it really worth your while keeping it? I think once you split your documentation into these three main areas, it gives you a good, at least initial plan to assess maybe the most critical areas. From there, obviously, that's where the journey sort of begins. But I think those three pillars, those three main areas, if you can break it down to those three and review each one, that's going to get you in a better place, kind of standardizing and unifying your documentation.
Amazing, thank you. We did get one very specific question. Flavio wasn't joking about that, about tackling a specific vulnerability, a specific Microsoft vulnerability to gain Cyber Essentials Plus. I unfortunately don't think that this is the platform to discuss specific vulnerabilities, but I hope, Rajan, you won't mind me saying that if anyone wants to get into the nitty gritty, they can reach out to you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, for sure.
Amazing, thank you. I hope I haven't put you in it too much. So let's pass over to Ellen for the third set of findings.
Great, thank you, Victoria. So in this next set of findings, we move away from the Cyber Essentials a bit to look more generally at asset and password management. And in this first finding, we look at the mechanisms that organizations are using to secure and manage their IT assets. 88% are using an MFA solution, with 76% using an IT asset management solution, and 75% are using a password management solution. Just under half are using an automated network discovery solution, indicating that this is less commonplace. And as we've discussed earlier, IT asset management refers to the tracking and management of an organization's technology assets, which, as I'm sure you'll all be aware, has become more complex as the number of devices and solutions has increased. So it's encouraging to see that many organizations have a solution in place for this function. In this next finding, we asked whether they have a single source of truth for the following assets. 73% said they have a single source of truth for their physical assets, with 64% having one for domain name registrations, 53% IP address spaces, and 51% cloud resources and digital resources, respectively, and then 49% virtual assets. Having a single source of truth means that having better clarity over who owns a particular asset within an organization, and this can really reduce silos. Without this, management complexity can arise from having multiple disparate systems. In this next finding, we asked which of the following best describes their approach to password management. When it comes to password management, 31% of respondents require employees to create complex passwords based on a criteria, and 29% use single sign-on. At the other end of the scale, just 18% mandate regular password changes in MFA, and 17% use a password manager to generate strong, complex passwords. 2% they have no specific password policy, and 1% use default passwords. In this finding, we looked at what respondents want from an ID asset and password management solution. And as you can see, the most important factor is having one that integrates well with their existing tools, closely followed by enterprise-grade security features and role-based access controls. Having a user-friendly interface and real-time asset tracking and inventory management were also deemed important. The right password management solution not only protects against unauthorized access, it also simplifies the process of implementing strong passwords. And from these findings, it is clear to see that ease of use and also ease of integration are highly valued. And in this last finding from the research today, we asked whether they agree with the statement, incomplete or inaccurate documentation is an issue at my organization. Now, as you can see, 58%, so over half, agree that this is an issue. And this clearly suggests that this is an area of improvement for many respondents. IT documentation refers to the collection of information related to IT infrastructure, and if this is poorly organized, then it can lead to inadequate knowledge transfer, process errors, and inefficiency. And for those looking to obtain the Cyber Essentials certification, having good documentation is essential, as it ensures that you're ticking the right boxes and meeting the requirements.
Amazing, thank you. Before we move on to the final set of questions, I just want to do two things. One is to direct all of your attention to the poll tab on the right-hand side of your screen. We do have a little poll for all of you to fill out if you haven't already. And secondly, we did get a question just now, a very specific one again. From Paul, what is the bring your own device requirement within Cyber Essentials? Rajan, would you like to tackle that?
Yeah, it is a specific question. The honest answer, I think it was Paul that asked, is I'm not too sure, but I'm happy to share what I believe would be the answer. I can't imagine in a hybrid environment as we live in today, with BYOD being more and more common, at least what I've seen in the past, I'd probably say like 6 to 8 months. I can't imagine that there's a strict requirement within Cyber Essentials whereby it's totally against it, or something like this. I believe it, as long as it falls in line with the other areas, such as having it documented, the applications installed on there, are they logged? Is it patched? Is there an up-to-date antivirus on it? Things like this. As long as these kind of requirements are met, I can't imagine that it is one. I can't. I would be highly surprised if there was a strict requirement against the BYOD. As well, I would be inclined to say, as long as it falls in line with the other controls, it should be sufficient. But I'm not 100% sure of that. Perhaps it's something we can take offline and dive into in a bit more depth. I'm also curious to get confirmation.
Absolutely. So not the cyber expert here, but from extra research that I've done, I just want to back that up, Rajan, that as far as I know, bring your own devices do fall under the scope of Cyber Essentials, and that they're tracked, or they are covered just like any other device, or rather home devices, etc. Right. So let's delve into some of the specifics. We've been talking in very general terms about an IT asset audit, IT asset tracking generally. Let's talk about a documentation solution and kind of some of the best practices for rolling out that specific piece of your IT environment.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I would always start, if I am taking on a new documentation solution or carrying out some sort of new process to document, I would always start with meeting, obviously, the key heads of department stakeholders that are going to be using the documentation tool, the head of the L1 team, L2, senior network engineer, so on and so forth. Gather their feedback on what issues are they having, understand their needs. That'll obviously ensure that the solution you choose, firstly, aligns with that, with their day-to-day operations. When team members feel that their input is valued, which it truly should be, since they're the ones that are going to get the most value out of this on at least a daily basis, they're more likely to support and actively participate in the rollout. At least that's what I've seen from my experience. The second practice that I'll share is more of a, as you mentioned, Victoria, more of a specific practice that I can share, that I advise partners that take on IT Glue, which is when documenting in a new tool, I wouldn't do it like this. I wouldn't start by saying, okay, we have 75 customers, let's document Active Directory for all 75. Then we'll do firewalls for all 75. I wouldn't do it that way. I'll explain why. Instead, what I'll do is I would recommend starting with maybe your largest, possibly most complex customer, document their entire environment comprehensively, That customer then serves as a gold standard, showing exactly how documentation should look for all other customers. And when you start with your largest, arguably most complex, perhaps customer, one, you're tackling a challenge up front. That's going to give you the opportunity to document, a possibly complicated environment, a large environment, maybe some diverse technologies, configurations, and challenges there. You're showing how complete and detailed and refined a documentation template you have that can be replicated. It's scalable across everyone else. And secondly, in terms of doing that, you're immediately showing demonstrable value, right? Obviously, you asked, how do we get buy-in? An example of this is quite powerful. If we can log one large, possibly complex customer, it directly illustrates how we can improve service delivery for that customer, whether it's faster troubleshooting, more like speedier onboarding of new team members, or just better compliance. These are quick motivators, and they can show the team and other stakeholders, higher ups in the business, of that. Whereas what I described initially, if we just document, Active Directory one by one, it gives you just a fragmented view. You're left with just this sort of piecemeal documentation that just lacks context. It doesn't show how these systems interact within the larger environment, and it's harder to set standards that align with the entire documentation process there.
Fantastic. I don't know if we have time for my last two questions. So I might just ask you to do the final one, because I know we have lots of detail on this. Can you walk us through a use case of how Blue has helped an organization?
Yeah, for sure. If I hit the next slide here, I'll walk you through sort of, let me just hit that. I'll walk you through it's a few slides, but ultimately I would say it is one use case kind of dissected. So the first one that we'll look at, obviously Ellen mentioned in one of those findings, automated network discovery. I think it was something like close to 50%, 49% maybe had that. A lot of people think of it as a luxury, something quite sophisticated, and so on and so forth. A lot of people do their sort of network discovery in Visio. I wouldn't really consider that network discovery. It's just a map. Something like this is something that may help. Network glue this is in IT glue. It's quite simple how it works. It's you deploy one very lightweight agent, the network collector tool. You can deploy it through your RMM if you've already got something like that on there, or Intune, something like that. Deploy it to an endpoint, typically something that's going to be online most of the time, like a server, could be a workstation, but if it's offline, it just won't scan the network. Nonetheless, let's say we deploy it to a server, it will scan the network, and it will produce a topology map like this. So it will pull in those devices, right, and show you how they're logically connected together. And if I then just move to the next slide there, you'll see that then gives you a complete list of configurations. By configuration, we're really referring to any managed thing on the network. Obviously, it's going to be the typical sort of IT equipment, switches, routers, access points, servers, workstations, firewalls, things like that. But we'll have now more of a complete picture of that. So for example, I may have my RMM connected into IT Glue. That's bringing in all of my servers and workstations. That's great. However, Network Glue may pick up my switches, right? And then I have a complete list, 2 data sources fed into one IT Glue instance, gives me a complete list of all of the configurations we're managing, which is great. To expand on that, if we click on one of these managed configurations, this is an example of a server here. So it's one record. We're getting a lot of information I'm getting it from my RMM here, such as the operating system, when it was installed, the expiry date, things like this. I'm getting that from my RMM tool. I'm also going to get information from Network Glue, such as what switch is this connected to, also port matching, which port specifically is it connected to. I'm going to get information from Autotask for ticketing, how many open tickets are logged against this machine. I'm using Datto Backup. I can integrate that. That's going to show you the information just underneath there, such as the last 10 backups, how many were successful, right? Why did one fail, things like that. You can then troubleshoot from there once you've got that. This is all on one record in IT Glue, of course. And then, of course, there is going to be a password. You can embed that password directly onto the server here if you need to access it. It doesn't have to live separately. You can have that password in the password manager of IT Glue, tag it directly on that page. There are, of course, many other passwords, the Office 365 admin being one of them. Again, Ellen mentioned in the findings, a lot of partners have implemented MFA. That's great. That's a good start. For those that maybe haven't, one worth considering, a common practice that I see is the MFA app is on one shared phone in the office. Obviously, there's a lot of risk with that. What if the person with the phone goes on holiday, or what if they drop it off a building or something like that? But maybe something more practical. What if it's in a drawer, the person with the keys away, right? Things like this. You can eliminate this entirely, put the MFA token in here, and secondly, apply role-based access. You'll see those security restrictions there. All the server passwords, only senior admins and above can access it. And then ultimately, the final sort of scenario here, bringing this all together, this should play as a video. If I click there we go, great. This is a large export. It's called a run book in IT Glue. It's a large export of all of the documentation that you have on a customer. This could be used for multiple reasons. Firstly, obviously useful for the context of today is maybe showing compliance. You can see it's indexed there on the left. It's a very big document. You can index it though. You can show to your auditor, look, open this, hit configurations, you'll see all of the list of assets that we manage. If you wanted to see the apps and services deployed, of course, feel free to click around and see that. So you can create this in a few moments. I've also seen it used by partners to drive revenue. For instance, I could create like just a fake site in IT Glue, a dummy site, document everything entirely, produce something like this, and then use it for prospecting. Say, hey, look, if you come on board with me, this is the level of documentation I'll give you. I'm compliant with Cyber Essentials or your preferred accreditation, and kind of illustrate that compliance and that attention to detail just with something like this export here.
I love that. Thank you, Rajan. It's so useful to see this kind of firsthand and visually demonstrated. Right. Well, to everyone attending, we have reached kind of the final point of this conversation. But I did want to say thank you for tuning in, and thank you for asking questions and for engaging. Please do keep talking about Cyber Essentials, and feel free to reach out to Rajan or to IT Glue to talk about the solution. And thank you very much for your time. Thanks, Rajan and Ellen, as well, for your insights. It's been fantastic talking to you. And yeah, have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Appreciate it. Thanks all.